Hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing something a little different and we're going to be kind of answering the FAQ, as I like to say, based on comments that I've been getting over the years since I've been doing, war games and things in tabletop sim as well as different places like that. So anyway, common question I get is where do I get counters from, or how do you get counters into the actual game itself? Perhaps you're doing something like you're doing some kind of naval simulation, or you're doing some kind of air simulation or something like that. And basically it's not too challenging. Usually what I'll do is I'll go ahead and scoot over and grab my stuff. Let's quickly just throw together a quick example. If I do something naval, let's see, do I have any good counter sheets here? Let's take a counter sheet like that. And a lot of times you get stuff like this from kind of poking around the internet. If you're looking for things like this on the internet, one of the best things I have to recommend for you is if you go on Google, if you type in ship counters, whoops, helps if you spell that correctly, even if I didn't spell it correctly, you're going to get tons of websites. This guy, Mike's second Wargames page, by the way, is dynamite. Yeah, they're not the prettiest counters in the universe, but honestly, I think they're absolutely awesome. And again, you can see all sorts of different counters from so many different generations and so many different games here. It's just a matter of bringing them in. So usually what happens is you're going to get the counters and they're going to kind of look something like this. This is not that big of a deal. So what you want to do is if you're on Windows, if you bring up the snipping tool, I believe this has its own name now. There's a new one. Yeah, Snip and Sketch is the new one. If you click on New, you can simply drag a box around the object you want to go ahead and use. So for example, if I want to do the Moslava, I could just drag a little box around it like that. Then go ahead and save it just like that. I'm going to go ahead and drop it right on my desktop here on my little tabletop folder. What do we have? The Moskva. Whoops. Moskva. Got it. So now if we go over to Tabletop Sim real quickly, we can go up to Objects, we can do Components, and we can actually do a custom component for that particular object. Now you have two basic kinds. You have a tile and you have a token. Each one sort of has its own personality. If you are doing a tile, let's go to Tabletop real quick. Let's go get the Mosava. Press local, go ahead and grab that same exact file again, Mosava, local, import. If you do it as a tile, you have the ability to flip it and have two different images on different sides. This is great if you're playing certain kinds of war games. If you need to make it bigger or smaller, you can move your mouse over it and just kind of do plus minus stuff like that. And now we have the Mosava pretty much all ready to go. Now a token's a little different. It's the same thing as that, except, let's go get the Mosava again. The difference here is the fact that you have the same picture on both sides and it flips it when you use the other side to it. Another thing worth noting as well is when you go to stack these, they're going to stack like this. When you go to stack these, they tend to stack more like conventional pieces. I can pick up several of these over at the same time. If I grab this and try to pick these up, yeah, you're going to get kind of the same sort of behavior. But that's basically it as far as making counters. Now, the other question I get quite a bit is, how do I make those like little data sheets or something that you see in some games? Well, that's done exactly the same way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoot back over here real quickly. We'll go ahead and go to air. Yes, I do have a good collection. Scoot over here. Oh, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and get the nomogram, because this is definitely the way to do it. So this is already an image. In case you couldn't tell by the rough edges, I actually scanned this in from my scanner. I have the paper version of Birds of Prey sitting on my floor, so I can actually import this directly into Tabletop Sim, which is what I'm going to do. So I'll scoot back to Tabletop Sim, grab myself a token, go under Custom Files, Tabletop, and let's see here. Oh, actually, I'm going to have to go over to Google Drive for that. Well, let's just get another one that I can use real quickly. Oh, we'll use this one from a very different game. Whoa. Don't worry, it comes back. And then we get something like this. Now, when you first import these files, you're going to find that the thickness is way too much, and you're also you're also going to find them very difficult to read. So what I recommend doing is using your plus minus keys to go ahead and make this a little bit larger. I'm going to go ahead and slap this on the side right here so that we can go ahead and use it. Now, the other thing I've been asked is how do you write on these? It's actually pretty simple. By the way, if you're wondering why this is so bleached out, it's because the ambient light that we're using in this particular case is very intense. If you would actually bring down the intensity, I'm sorry, if you would bring down the ambient intensity a little bit, that was probably a little too much. It's going to suck some of that out of there so it won't be as flushed out depending on what you're using. So anyway, the other question I always get is how do you write on these? There's a couple different ways. The first step method is to use the text method. I don't recommend this. Oh, by the way, if in order to write on something, they have to be locked. So to lock them, you just place them and tap the L key, and now I can't accidentally move them also, which is kind of nice. So anyway, oh, by the way, you can use one of these regular pieces for this too if you have a back on it. But like I said, this time it's just easy to use a tile. It makes it slightly different sounding. So anyway, I'm going to go up here. We have the vector paint tool. You have a couple different choices here. You have draw, you have line, you have box, circle, erase, and color. I always like to pick a color that's nice and dark. Now, what you probably see is the first time you go to do this, if my ship's called the ship, it's very difficult to read because this marker is so incredibly thick. So what we can do, and by the way, when you erase those vector lines, each one of those is actually a line. It's not a pixel. You can actually hold your mouse over the object you want to draw on and use your minus and plus keys on the keyboard. This means you can do things like this, which, mind my terrible writing here. But, if we were playing a game of Squadron Strike, we could go rip it in here real quickly. You could put your star, you go ahead and put your tail on it, and everything like that very, very quickly and very, very easily. I'm plotting my move. It's going to be 5. That means it's going to be one of these. It's going to be one of these. And away you go kind of a thing. Now, the cool thing with this is you can come up here with the eraser. You can just do just like that and kind of clean it up. And you're ready to go. And that's pretty much all you need to do as far as that stuff. The other thing I'm asked also is, how do you get those, backgrounds or something along those lines? Well, that gets a little bit trickier, but again, it's nothing too crazy. I'm going to go ahead and unlock this and delete this. If you go under Objects and you go to Saved, I'm sorry, I've got all sorts of fun stuff in there. If you go under Objects and you go into Components, you can actually do what they have called a custom board. Now, what I like to do is I like to fire up Google Earth. So you're getting the full experience today. So let's say we wanted to have a battle in the middle of, let's say, Easter Island or something kind of nice and weird like that. Do one of those kind of things. Go ahead and shut that off. Don't need any of that. Just creating some lag for me here. Whee! Okie dokie. So if we wanted to have a battle in Easter Island for some reason, what we could do is we could actually shut down the primary database so that everything gets nice and flattened out. Sometimes you have to rename California or something like that. I'll say this. And go escape. We'll just leave the Easter Island. But now what you can actually do is go File and you can save the image. I'm looking right at it. Yeah, there it is. There's the button. Oh, not view in Google. There it is, save image. So when you click this button, it's going to take a picture here. And one of the things I always get annoyed at is the fact you get all this kind of junk on the sides and on the bottom. So if you go to map options, you can actually shut everything off that you don't actually need for a given situation like this. So I'll go ahead and get rid of that too. You can also opt to have like a slightly darker version if that's what you're going for. And the nice thing is you can zoom back out and play with it just a little bit. Then you can set it to maximum resolution and hit save image. As soon as you save the image, when we go back over here, if we were to do a custom board, you could go back to the folder that you saved the images. I'm curious if I have any good one. Let's see if desert's good. Oh, yeah, that's a sweet one. I got that one right off Google Earth. And now you have yourself a beautiful tabletop that you can use. Now, you can unlock this tabletop. I always like to kind of put it on the edge. Whoa. Look at how big that got. Don't forget to freeze it. All right, going to zoom back out again. And go ahead and rotate it, let it drop a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty much on top of the table. And you've got this gorgeous map of the desert. This is definitely the Rockies. I see something. I'm not 100% sure. I'll probably use this for birds of prey or something like that to simulate some mountains here. So another thing you can do is you can actually project a grid on this, which I think is really awesome. So if you were to turn on the grid, if you're doing a good old-fashioned hex grid, you turn it on, you can actually right-click on the object and tell it to, it should have grid projection. There it is, just like that, which provides you with this awesome grid now that you can move your pieces very precisely if you're doing something like Birds of Prey or Squadron Strike or, Fire She Bears and all those other kind of games that use those kind of hex grids. And that works really, really, really well for me. And the neat thing is if you have an object, let's go grab a fake object real quick, a black square, you can actually tell this to snap to grid. I believe, is that right? Pre-snapped? Now we're going to have to tell it to snap to grid. Oh, it's right in front of me. It always is. We don't want to do that. I'm missing it. Hold on. I'm going to get it. You would think that it would just be, here we go. So you can tell it to be on the center or you can tell it to be on the edge. So go ahead and close that. And now if I let go, you'll notice that it jumps directly onto the grid and snaps. So that even if I go smacking into it with some dice or something like that, it's not going to go flying, which is, kind of nice if you ask me. So that's pretty much it. Those are the questions I get asked kind of the most is, where do you get this? I know you're probably going, well, wait a minute. What if I've seen you use custom ships before? That's true. You know, for some things that I will do is I'll actually use a custom piece. Now, for this is getting a little outside of the game as far as what we need to do and how to get these things, but it's not unusual for me to actually custom model something if I absolutely need to get it for something. There's actually no image for that. So let's go ahead and there's no normal for that, but there is a collider, angle block, local, it's non-convex, and go ahead and import it. So then, of course, you can come in here, you can make it a red one or something like that, and you're good to go. So sometimes I do model these things. I model them in Blender. The big danger with Blender is you'll find this out if you try this out yourself also, is when you're using Blender, you have to make sure everything's a triangle. So even if you have a rectangular face, if it's not subdivided as triangles, it's not going to render. And you'll be able to stick your head like this and look underneath it and through it or something like right now. You can see that it's flat, and that works. One thing you have to watch out for is whenever you have an object that's got kind of funky collision, like this little angle block here, you're going to have to lock it in place if you want the object you're going to be dropping into it to have any sort of a chance in the universe of actually sticking. You're going to have to actually shut off grid on this, because if you don't do that, it's not going to behave very well. Come on, come on. Sometimes you can get lucky and you can just kind of let go of it and it kind of shoots in like that. Hey, wait, are we going to get it? Close enough. Now, if I had this thing unlocked, the square go boing. Oop. Nah, they're not. Yeah, you can see it kind of bounced in like that now that I've unlocked it. So you got to kind of watch out for that. Oh, there it goes. You have to kind of watch out for that when you're making your own custom work. One thing that I found that worked really well is if you go up here where it's you have the F5 tool. I'm so sorry, not F5, my bad. What is it in this version? F4, thank you. You get a great tool for going ahead and making measurements. This is in inches, and you can actually, if you look really carefully, it shows you that it's in inches. So for example, if you wanted to make a custom object, I don't think I have a saved object. I think that was my old hard drive, but I used to have a ruler. Oh, okay, that's a ruler. Do I have where's I had a nice ruler for a while. Did I actually still have it? No. Oh, there it is. Look at this. So I just literally went on the internet, looked up a picture of a ruler, and then sat here, went like this about 50 times to try to get it exactly 12 inches long. But it works really well, and obviously, if you want a protractor or something like that, there we go. This is just using an image directly off of Google or something like that. The neat thing too with tools like this, again, you can get a little too complicated if you ask me, is I can go something like, oh, what's the angle to this? And you can look kind of, let me get a little closer here. Again, my light is too strong if I do something like that. You can actually read, oh, it's a 226 degrees or whatever the equivalent is. And it's pretty cool. And then, of course, I tried this ages ago, but that's not going to work. So I really got to get rid of it. And of course, for true war gamers, I went online and found a picture of a meter stick. But again, there's almost no reason to do that because you can just tap F4 and go like that and measure it. Another quick thing is with the vector tool is you can draw lines. So if you have an object that is locked, you can draw a line to it. So for those of you who are big fans of Harpoon series and you need to do one of these things for about the 10,000th time, you can go ahead and draw that. Keep in mind though, is if I unlock this, I can move this around and the drawing stays on it, which is handy. If I go and put it like this, if I don't lock it, I can't draw on it again. And that's kind of a bummer. So let me go ahead and unlock everything here real quickly and kind of clean up my huge mess. Now the table is always considered to be locked. So if you're doing some kind of battle plan or something like that, and you want to go ahead and plan that all out on the table, you can definitely do it just like that. The line tool, by the way, if you use your plus and minuses, you can use it to make it a much bigger line. You can also use it to make a much smaller line. And these do sync in multiplayer. So I guess that's about it. That's kind of everything people usually ask me. Again, if you want to look online, type in ship counters. For those of you who are looking for more modern ship counters, a place that I recommend poking around is Yahoo Groups. A lot of the players, like the Harpoon/Admiralty Trilogy people, have a bunch of stuff posted under their files section. If you're looking for the air battle people for like Birds of Prey, you're probably going to be poking around a little bit on, I think it's called groups.io now. I think they moved off of Yahoo Groups. If you're looking for stuff from, I'm just trying to think, just go through the list real quick. Stuff of Age of Sail, a lot of times you can borrow it from other game systems saved inside of this particular one. But that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions or there's something a little more specific, if you want me to go into the detail that it requires as far as how to make something like, let's go ahead and grab something a little bit more complicated here. Oh, F100, definitely. Diffuse image, I was smart, I saved everything as what I knew I needed it to be. And we should be good. If you want to have instructions on how to make something like this in Blender, you can do a little bit of this on your own even without using Blender, but it's just, I don't know, it just comes out nicer when you can actually look at the front of the airplane. Of course, if you had this on physics off mode, you could actually put this at an angle. Let's shut the physics off real quick, and it's off. Save and exit. Now, if I put it at an angle, it would actually stay at that angle, which is pretty cool if you're playing any games that involve sort of 3D elements. Okay, again, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll try to answer it. If you want me to get a little more complicated, I can get a little more complicated, but I bet for most gamers it's good. Somebody was asking me about Vassal at one point. I have a little bit of experience with Vassal, but personally, I like Tabletop Sim because I can do it in VR if I want or something like that. It's just a little bit more visual, and a Vassal is it's not the easiest program to use, to be honest. And sometimes you can even use things like Map Tool from RP Tools, and I've even seen people use Roll20 and things like that to do war games. But again, the concept would be exactly the same for creating your graphics. All right, enjoy.